What if I told you that the reason your investments feel completely pointless right now has nothing to do with how much you're earning, how smart you are, or even how disciplined you've been? What if the problem is simply that nobody ever told you what compounding actually looks like from the inside, and that most people quit investing at literally the worst possible moment, right before everything changes? You're sitting there, dutifully moving money into your brokerage account or your 401k every single month, watching your balance creep upward at what feels like the speed of a glacier, and you're starting to wonder if the whole thing is just a scam designed to make financial advisors rich. You're not wrong to feel that way, but you are wrong about what's actually happening. And today, I'm going to prove it to you with a concept called the 843 rule. I've spent years in the personal finance space breaking down wealth building strategies, and the 843 rule is genuinely one of the most clarifying frameworks I've ever come across for understanding how compounding actually works in real life. Here's what we're covering today: the mathematical pattern behind why wealth feels impossible to build and then suddenly feels inevitable, why most people abandon their investments at exactly the wrong moment, and the single most important mindset shift that separates people who build lasting wealth from those who stay stuck. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end because the final point reframes everything in a way that honestly changes how you make financial decisions forever. Point 1: compounding is not slow, it's backloaded. Here's the thing that nobody really explains when they're telling you to start investing early. Compound growth doesn't move in a straight line. It moves on an exponential curve, which means it starts almost flat, barely noticeable, and then at some point it bends dramatically upward and accelerates faster than your brain can comfortably predict. The problem is that when you're standing at year 2 or year 3 of your investing journey, all you can see is the flat part. You have no line of sight to the steep part. So your brain does what brains do: it extrapolates. It looks at your current growth rate and concludes that this is just how it works, and at this rate, you'll be 90 years old before you have anything meaningful. That conclusion is mathematically wrong, but it feels completely logical. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Point 2: here's exactly what the 843 rule actually means. The 843 rule describes a predictable pattern in how your wealth accumulates when you invest consistently over time. It goes like this: reaching your first major wealth milestone takes roughly 8 years. Doubling that milestone takes only 4 more years, and doubling it again takes just 3 years after that: 8, then 4, then 3. The same contributions, the same return percentage, but radically different speeds of growth. Let me put real numbers on this so it lands properly. Imagine someone investing around $800 a month, earning a 12% average annual return starting from zero. After 8 years, they've put in about $77,000 of their own money and their portfolio has grown to roughly $115,000. Feels okay, not spectacular. Now watch what happens next. 4 years later, at year 12, that portfolio has jumped to somewhere around 235,000. It nearly doubled in less than half the time. And 3 years after that, at year 15, they're looking at close to $380,000. Those final 3 years added more value than the entire first 8 years combined. The contribution never changed. The return rate never changed. The only thing that shifted was the size of the base being compounded. That's the 843 rule in action. Point 3: you're in one of 3 phases right now, and knowing which one changes everything. This is where the framework gets genuinely practical. There are 3 distinct phases of the compounding journey. Phase 1 is contribution dominated. Your portfolio is still small, so even solid returns produce modest dollar amounts. If you're contributing $10,000 a year and your portfolio is worth $30,000, a 12% return generates about $3,600. Your contribution is nearly 3 times bigger than your return. You're doing most of the heavy lifting. That's supposed to feel slow because mathematically it is. Phase 2 is the crossover. Your portfolio has grown large enough that returns start matching and then overtaking your contributions. This is the transition zone, roughly years 9 through 12 in the model. You start noticing that your account statement looks different. The numbers surprise you in a good way. Phase 3 is return dominated. Now your money is working harder than you are. A portfolio at 300,000 generating 12% annually is producing $36,000 in returns, while you're still only contributing 10,000. Your money is doing more than 3 times the work. This is when longtime investors say it feels like cheating. So let me ask you directly, which phase are you in right now? Compare your annual returns to your annual contributions. That single comparison tells you exactly where you stand on the curve. Still with me? Good, because this next part is where most people completely go off the rails. Point 4: the real reason people quit and why market dips are actually your best friend early on. Most people quit investing during phase 1. not because they can't afford to continue, but because the slow growth feels like evidence that the whole thing isn't working for them specifically. They look at their friends buying cars and upgrading apartments. They look at their own account showing a few $1,000s of growth after months of disciplined saving, and they make a decision that will cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. They stop, some raid the account, some just redirect the contributions to lifestyle spending. And here's the brutal irony, they quit right before the curve bends. Now here's the counterintuitive part about market volatility. When you're in phase one, the contribution-dominated phase, a market downturn is actually good for you. When prices drop, your regular contributions buy more shares at a discount. Every share you pick up during a down market will then compound for the entire remaining length of your investing life. The people who kept investing through the 2008 financial crisis and through the 2020 crash built significantly more wealth than those who paused. Volatility during accumulation is a feature, not a bug. You're stocking up on future wealth at sale prices. The time to worry about big drops is when you've entered phase 3, because then your base is large enough that a 10% dip is a meaningful dollar amount. But early on, stay the course and let market fear work in your favor. Point 5, your career follows the exact same pattern. This one almost never gets talked about, and it's mind-blowing once you see it. The 843 pattern doesn't just apply to investment accounts. Career earnings follow the same compounding shape. Your first 8 years in a field are slow and grinding. Skills are building, reputation is forming, your network is thin, raises come in small increments. Then the acceleration begins, your expertise starts commanding premium pay, opportunities find you instead of the other way around, and each salary increase builds on a higher base. And then there's that explosive phase where senior roles open up, equity compensation kicks in, and your earning trajectory bends sharply upward. Just like investors, plenty of professionals abandon their career path right before the curve accelerates. They get frustrated by slow early progress, jump to something unrelated, and reset their compounding clock entirely. The same patience that builds wealth in a brokerage account builds wealth in a career. Recognizing the pattern in both arenas gives you a completely different relationship with early-stage frustration. Now here's the most powerful point, and it's the real reason I wanted you to stick around to the end. Most people evaluate their financial progress by looking backward. They check their account balance, compare it to where they want to be, feel the gap, and interpret that gap as failure or slow progress. But the 843 rule points to a radically different way to measure where you are. Look forward, not backward. Instead of asking how much you've accumulated so far, ask what your current portfolio will be worth in 15 years if you simply don't interrupt it. Run that projection. Seriously, do it this week. What you'll find almost always is that the number in your future looks dramatically better than the number in your present. Your wealth isn't missing, it's already mathematically locked in. You just haven't reached the visible portion of the timeline yet. That forward projection changes behavior. It makes you patient during the early slow years because you know the acceleration is scheduled, not hypothetical. It makes you protective of your contributions because you understand that every dollar you invest today gets the most years of compounding, meaning it gets the most leverage the entire system has to offer. The person who truly internalizes this doesn't panic sell, doesn't raid the account for a vacation, doesn't convince themselves that compounding only works for people who started with money. They just keep contributing, stay consistent, and let the mathematics deliver exactly what the numbers always promised. 8 years feels like forever while you're living it. 4 years is hard but manageable. 3 years passes before you know it. And then you're standing at the steep part of the curve looking at numbers that would have seemed impossible from where you started. So here's my question for you. Which phase of the 843 rule are you currently in? Phase 1 grinding it out, Phase 2 feeling the momentum build, or Phase 3 watching your money finally outwork you? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and it genuinely helps me create content that meets you exactly where you are. If this video gave you a framework you wish you'd had years ago, that's what this channel is built for, not generic finance advice, but the specific mental models that actually change how you make money decisions. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one because we are just getting started. And remember, your wealth isn't slow, it's just backloaded. Go be patient with a purpose.